Hi, this is Dan Harris, and welcome to the Ironbird podcast. On today's episode, we have Jack Lambert. Jack's the CEO of FlyHouse. They're an aircraft management company, but more than that, they're a technology company. They're building an ecosystem for operators like themselves, but really for the community as a whole to build up operators that are smaller, 3-4 airplane operators, and provide them more services than what they might be able to have themselves. I really enjoyed this conversation with Jack. I hope you do as well. So, Jack, you've built, grown, and sold an aircraft management charter company already. Why would you want to do that again?
That's a great question. Listen, we had a great run. 16 years at JetASAP, built it to the top 10 operator in the country. But there was time to do something different, and this opportunity presented itself. And I said, "Hey, what's the difference between what I did before, what's going on now?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was like it's the technology piece of it that made it more exciting. And so here we are, man. 18 months later.
Yes. So starting from where like you thought the vision was. So when you kind of got sold the vision, how do you think that's progressed? Like where do you think that vision is from where you are right now versus where you were 3 years ago?
Yeah, so two things there. We have FlyHouse fleet,
Mm-hmm.
Aircraft management, just like everybody else. And so the idea was to start something and do something a little bit differently on the management side. Then it kind of morphed into, hey, we saw the writing on the wall of, hey, you have a consumer. That consumer never talks to the operator or owner. How do we eliminate that stuff in the middle? And so we developed this proprietary technology to get us to that point. So where we are today from where we were 18 months ago is incredible. And the amount of wins we kind of put on the board, it's been exciting.
This episode is brought to you by Video Valet. If you care about having the best in-flight experience on your private flights, Video Valet offers up to 1.2 million movies, shows, magazines, and newspapers, all available on board without the need of expensive Wi-Fi or hardware. Eric and his team at Video Valet deliver fully customized iPads to ensure that your preferences are met on every single flight. Whether providing my kids with their favorite shows or allowing me and my wife to catch up on breaking news, I personally could never travel without it again. Video Valet is offering a special promotion to Ironbird podcast listeners. Mention Ironbird, and Video Valet will add one free fully personalized iPad at no additional cost. Now, to the Ironbird podcast. Because if you look at the actual process of what it takes to charter an airplane, we'll call it the traditional way, right? It's the amount of communication points is insane, right? It's you call or email an operator or broker, you get quotes, you maybe negotiate a quote, you try and book a quote, then the operator broker then has to go talk to the owner. The owner may have a calendar that doesn't sync up with that. Now you have to go to another airplane. It's like that process could be 15 to 20 communication pieces together, right? Where do you think technology comes to really kind of streamline that process of trying to book an airplane or trying to book a charter flight?
Well, so great point. 15 to 20 different steps. Man, that could take 2 to 48 hours.
Yeah.
We've solved it in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. How do we create the efficiency in the marketplace, bring everybody together? Oh, by the way, you can solve this in 3 minutes. Man, if you told me this, 15 years ago when I'm making 100 phone calls, every hour trying to find an airplane, man, solving it in 3 minutes is critical.
What do you think having an aircraft management part of the business, where do you see that as you're building, this technology? Where does that come into play of, all right, I've got this traditional aircraft management company, but I've also got a technology company that I'm building. How much of an advantage is it if you compared, FlyHouse to someone that is just purely a tech company? Where do you see that aircraft management company coming into play? Like, how's that an advantage for FlyHouse on the technology side?
So, great question, and it's something we've kind of talked internally. So, the management side has kind of grown organically. Having the technology piece, having the data to show what is going on in the marketplace by minute, having the owner portal where the owner can go in there and see his stuff real time, that hasn't existed. So being able to do that, and having the data, having the tracking systems to do that, being more efficient, getting the statements out, not 45 days later, not 25 days later, pull that stuff out in real time. You close out months, October 5th for a September month.
Yeah, which is incredible, because quite often you see sometimes it takes a full month trailing to actually close a management statement out. Sometimes I've seen it even more, right? You've seen it 45 days, sometimes 60 days to really close out a management statement. What is your growth plan with FlyHouse? Do you, like, from the management side, you said kind of organically, but where are you looking to grow, the management side, and then where are you hoping to grow on the technology side?
So 2 points there. I'll go back to your first thing. So the way we see it is you have to have full buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the company has to be bought into it. What I mean by that is the pilots have to be bought in. Why? Because 90% of the receipts that we spend in the company is coming from the pilots. So getting the alignment right from jump is so critical to our success. The second point of that is you with the management side, great. With the technology, being able to create those efficiencies in the system, all while having the buy-in from a culture standpoint, is so critical to our success to be able to take us from here up to here. We talk about having 9 airplanes on the fleet. Going on the app, we're in soft launch now. We soft launch May 31st. We'll do a full launch January 1st. 2 days into May, when we did our soft launch, it was May 1st actually. We actually had 300 airplanes on the app.
Wow!
In 2 days, we're like, oh man, let's pump the brakes a little bit. And so for us, it's like, how do we get to 2,000 on the platform, and how do we get to 100 airplanes on fleet? And so that's, we talk about KPIs all the time. That's the KPIs we're striving for: 2,000 airplanes, 100 airplanes on fleet. And we'll get that organically, but the key is the buy-in culturally will give us more apostles in the industry.
You talked about something interesting with the pilots being the ones seeing 90% of the receipts. Do you want to break people down of what it used to be, of how a trip is for an airplane owner, how a trip operated, and how they actually got all the prices back from what an airplane owner or crew had spent? Like, how did that used to happen?
Well, and we always say if it used to happen that way, let's change it. But in the old days, and shoot, today we see it. One trip you may have 60, 70 expenses. I remember back in the day of, hey, we're searching around trying to find that $5 Subway receipt. It's like, this is craziness.
And it'd be physical receipts, right, in a Manila folder somewhere, right?
Right. And so in the old days, before floating fleets, that airplane came back to base every night. There's planes we haven't seen in 3 months. It's like, oh my goodness, what do we do? You've got to do those receipts every day, and then it's like, in the previous, you'd say, all right, hey, send them at the end of every week. No, we can't do that. It's like, you've got to close that trip out inside of 48 hours, period, end of story. And that's why the focus has been so much even on the per diems. You've seen per diems go higher because of the receipt management. It's just a cluster.
You think with a higher per diem, it kind of removes a lot of that receipt and then streamlines that billing for an airplane owner?
So that's part of it. I think when you still break it down, you still got rental cars, you still got fuel. Getting that fuel sheet. We always say, hey, you get the fuel receipt, but did you get the receipt? Was it actually exactly what you ordered? Who's quality controlling this? If you're using contract fuel, it's like, well, the contract fuel provider's not giving you that bill for another 30 days. Man, we can't do this. How do we run our business? Then it becomes a cash flow problem.
Then you end up being a bank and not an aircraft
100%,
management company.
100%.
That's tough. I mean, cash flow from any business is tough, but when you've got these huge amounts, a huge fuel bill, hotels, charter revenue, that gets tough to manage. You think by speeding that process up, that'll improve any company's cash flow management?
1,000%. I mean, you think about if you can create efficiencies. It's not about creating efficiencies in the market. You got to create efficiencies internally first to get to that next level. And And so from a transparency standpoint, yeah, we want to see a copy of that receipt. I'm billing that owner. I want to see that receipt. The owner's going to want to see that receipt. That's all about the backup. We always hear it in management companies, it's all about the backup. Got to have that backup. How do you solve that? And so we've solved it with our app and having all that stuff in one location, having the ability for that owner to go at any point in time, see it in real time. That's invaluable.
How much are you guys in FlyHouse? What's your strategy with sharing information with airplane owners? Do you want them to have access to everything? Do you think it's smart for an airplane owner just to be able to see everything, every build? Do you think it's overwhelming? Like, how do you balance the ability to give airplane owners information but not overwhelm them?
So every owner's different, right? Some owners want more, some owners want less. At the end of the day, we're giving that owner ownership in FlyHouse. And so it's, they have the ability to audit us 4 times a year. So the transparency side of it, and everybody talks about it.
Yeah.
The transparent side of it is so critical, having that information available in real time, not 3 days later when he asked you. It's like, here it is right here. When you can go 3 clicks, we always say 3 clicks. If you can't get to it in 3 clicks, it's a problem. And so solving that solves that growth problem easy.
How much data are you going to give to airplane owners about just like charter data with amount of request volume or booking percentage? Historically, there's zero data like that is passed to airplane owners, and they're kind of in the dark, especially on maybe like a downturn. If we're in a little bit of a downturn, airplane owners are always being like, hey, what's the story? Why isn't there more hours? Are you sharing data with airplane owners of, all right, here's request volume, here's how it compares to what it was 6 months ago?
So the industry is so tough because it's so ebb and flows. You got 1 week booked all this charter. Next week, airplane sits. Owner doesn't understand. And so, and they're not into it. So they're asking us, hey, what is the story? It's all seasonal. Yes, that's great. And then it's just patterns. I remember being in Florida and it's, up and down the East Coast. You get out here, it's different. You're going to Cabo, you're going to, Aspen and here. The good thing is we have airplanes on both coasts, so it works, but it's the data is so critical because it leads you to everything you need. It allows you to make better decisions. And it allows the owner to understand, hey, okay, I can plan for this because, hey, maybe we can put the airplane down because of the ebbs and flows. We're seeing a pattern now. It's also great when you're actually attracting new aircraft. You actually have the data. Hey, why am I not chartering? Well, great. Your G5's $10,000 an hour. Probably should be at 9.
Yep.
Whatever the number is. And so being able to have that data sets you up for success.
Here's the market data. Here's where your airplane fits within it. Here's that historical data of, all right, over the last 3 years, here's where the historically, a Van Nuys based G5 has flown in October over the last 3 years, right?
Right.
Maybe even then they use that data to even better predict maintenance requirements, right? Oh shit, maybe this is a down month historically. Maybe I move, my maintenance event, which was, I could do in November. Maybe I pull that a month earlier now. Now they can also make better maintenance predictions with some of that data.
Totally.
Let's dig into the FlyHouse booking app. One of the things that I find really interesting is the reverse bidding. You want to kind of break us down how that works?
Yeah, so customer goes on. Again, we're going for the end user.
Yeah.
So you're connecting the end user to the operator or owner, right? And so as the end user goes on, puts their trip in, all right, I want to go Van Nuys, I want to go to Dallas for 2 days. Great. Put that in the system. And then any operator that's in and around Van Nuys gets to bid on that. And I say bidding, so there's 2 types of bidding. There's the predetermined rate. I go to you as an operator and say, hey, what do you want? The key for us is, and what we're trying to tell the folks is, we are frictionless. We always joke in the office, we're like the phone company. We don't care who you call, just pay your bill. And so that model, being able to, you tell us what you want. Hey, I want these rates. This is the fees I want for the landing and all that. If you want to be involved in the process actively, you can, but can you imagine all the trips that are going to be coming in? Your phone's going to be blowing up. So get the predetermined rate in there. We've got the API for the schedule. So if your airplane's deemed unavailable, airplane won't get quoted.
Yep.
So if it's deemed unavailable, when it is available, it will get quoted.
Yeah.
So
which helps with the request volume. Because historically, the APIs into the scheduling weren't really accurate. So your airplane operators were getting, 30 quotes for dates airplanes aren't even available. They're wasting that time of quoting these, or not even quoting, just saying not available, right?
Totally.
Or they weren't even responding to a client, and now a client's pissed because they're sending requests and they're not even getting responses back, right?
Right, and there's several systems out there that you and I've been very intimate with, and not having data, not having the correct data creates all this what we call time suck.
Yep.
In the system, to where I've got to then pick up the phone call. Nope, that's not available. After you've already told the client you've got something available. How do we eliminate all that? In the challenge, and we'll obviously get into this, but as you talk about the challenges, it's getting that data right.
Yep.
I've always lived in a world where it's all about the seats.
Yeah.
You can have all the asses in the world, but if you don't have seats, man, you don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the volume of being able to get to 2,000 airplanes, but you got to know where those seats are.
Yeah.
You got to know how to price them.
So an operator sets their rate. Here's what I'd like to get for my airplane, and that's for a client that searches for that Dallas trip. He's going to see, all right, here are all the airplanes that are shown available, and here's their expected rate, right?
Right.
Then how does the bidding process work after that?
So the bidding process is, hey, it's almost like you have a high and low, and so we go through decrements, and so you may go down, drop 3%. Remember, you got 3 minutes to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's virtually impossible for you, unless you have a ton of salespeople, to be able to manually go in there and actively bid on it. So that's why we do the decrements. You're not going to win every trip. That's okay. Guess what? We have the data to show you why you didn't win that trip.
Yeah.
Hey, for a Hawker 800, this is the going rate.
Yep.
We have the data. Thousands of trips coming through that system. That's where we go back to our original point. The data is so key to be able to have that. I can go to an operator and say, hey, you've got 3 airplanes. Here's the trips. And we always say in the office, we can turn that spigot on or off. But, we're doing that manually today.
Yeah.
And so when you can do that where it's just 3 minutes, my goodness.
And maybe for an operator, they say, hey, anything below this rate doesn't make sense. So I'll let other airplanes that may be either older or operate at a lower rate, they'll take that. And then the goal is after those airplanes have been booked, hopefully there are some more trips that can meet my rate, right?
Right. And so, solving, we always say, what are we solving for? So we're solving for how do we take asses and put them in the seat and do it efficiently, effectively, and economically. Customers, they're always wanting the better deal.
Yeah.
So when we talk about one-ways, 70% of the requests we get are one-ways.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You think about where we were 15 years ago, dude.
It was all round trip.
It was all round trip.
Yeah.
By the way, even if it was one way. So being able to solve for that, again, having the availability, but then the way we see it, if the airplane is available 4 days, we'll actually move that airplane. We'll go Van Nuys Aspen, pick somebody up in Dallas, take them to Florida, go to New York, come back. Well, we can do that in 4 days. The system will automatically do that. By the way, we're not doing this inside of 72 hours. That's where all the chaos happens. If we can eliminate that chaos, you know how much an operator is going to love you for that? I can make you more efficient, make you more money, and eliminate your chaos. Oh my goodness, this is great.
And you're going to get your pilots theoretically moving, so they're moving with a decent schedule far enough in advance that they're not waking up being like, "Where am I going today?"
Right.
And you're going to take where it's interesting that you said that the majority are one ways, because I think that's where the market's moving to, where it was that traditional home base. You're going to quote from Van Nuys. If you're going to Aspen, you're going to pay Van Nuys, Aspen, Van Nuys. Being able to then tell someone, because you mentioned this earlier, the majority of airplane operators are 5 or less.
Yeah. So the statistics from TrackPack shows you that 90% of operators are 10 or less airplanes.
Yep.
You think about the magnitude of that. That's incredible.
Yep.
But what that tells you is there's a lot of operators that need help.
Yeah.
And so, FlyHouse, comes in and says, hey, we have the ability to, put asses in your seats. Giving you more money, FlyHouse takes a small fee, but it's fully transparent.
Yeah. It takes an airplane that would have just flown out, sat in Aspen for 2 days, and then flown back, right? You take that 3 or 4 day trip where you've only collected 3 or 4 hours,
Right.
and now you can take that same 4-day window and create 15 hours, right? So it's really maximizing that profit within that short period of time. Because I don't think a lot of these smaller operators, which is the majority of the market, can't know how to take an airplane and float it from one to the next to the next.
Yeah, and it's something that's we started doing it back in early 2000s, but when an airplane, a lot of it was the operators, the people booking the trips aren't incentivized to do it. They're like, I've got to leave at 5 o'clock, and we know it's 24/7.
Yeah.
But we're paid home, so we're just going to send the airplane back. It's like, do you not understand what you're doing?
Yeah.
You have an airplane. It's available for 3 days. You don't have to send it back. And by the way, you can make some money and, create cost or create, revenue for your owners. And obviously it's a long game at that point, right?
But the amount of work for someone, they got to take that. They may have quoted, 40 trips to win that one trip, right?
Right.
Now that if you want to we got to win 2 more trips. Now I've got to quote another 100 trips to now win 2 more trips.
Right.
I think you're right. It's a work issue. They're like, oh, I don't, I won the trip. The airplane's moving. I'm good.
I'm on
right?
to the next one.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's more revenue sitting on the table.
Yeah. There's a lot more juice left to squeeze out of that, right?
100%.
But I think with technology, you're thinking, all right, I can now feed this airplane. Now it's, hey, this airplane that was originally in Los Angeles fits all these Los Angeles trips. Now it's in Colorado. Now it's in a different pool that I'm going to feed more trips into this pool.
Right. So for us, it's, again, how do you drive costs down for an owner? You got to be efficient, and that's efficient throughout the whole entire process. The airplane has to be efficient. We always say, well, what's the deadhead rate, right? I mean, how much are you deadheading? We always get excited. It's like, oh yeah, our max deadhead is 0.3.
Wow.
We went from Philly to Teterboro. That's great.
Yeah.
Booked a trip into Philly. Next trip's out of Teterboro. You're going to have the Teterboro. You got to go up to Boston and pick somebody up. But, on the whole entire scale, if you can eliminate that deadhead, and I think part of it is thinking outside the box, thinking differently. Everybody always says, well, this is how we always do it. We say, well, you got to think differently. You got to do something. If that's the way you've been doing it, you got to do it complete opposite.
Yeah. It's these silos that everyone's built, right? And every company has its own small silo. But if for some reason, if you can aggregate all those demand into one location, right, now you can intelligently put airplanes in the right spot, and you can really maximize the efficiency for each of those airplanes.
Yep.
Does that, when we look at that technology and getting more of that demand, is that kind of where the JetASAP play came into? Of like, how did you look at JetASAP as a good buy from a technology standpoint?
Yeah, great question. So JetASAP was a lead gen, and so what that system did is that system basically took the end user, consumer, and put them directly into the operator's hands, and it was a membership based, and so that worked.
It was cheap too. What was the?
Yeah, it was. It's $75 a month.
Yeah.
They even did another one. It's like $150 for the year.
Still a deal.
It was a heck of a deal. And then you look at the operators. The operators were loving it. It was awesome. So we came in and said, hey, part of our KPIs, how do we get to 2,000 airplanes? And we need all that data.
Yeah.
JetASAP had the data. So for that point, that's taken months off our scale.
Yeah.
Growth plan. Then we said, okay, what about the end user? You're talking 30,000 plus end users that have used the system. And to get into deeper, it's active users was 8,000.
Wow.
So it's like we've got the consumer, which is what we're going for, and we've got the airplane operators. How do we get that data into our system now? Yeah. And so Lisa's obviously done a great job at building it. So we said, hey, let's bring you on and kind of build this together.
Well, it probably speeds your ramp by 2 years. Like, how long do you think it would take to get 30,000 users on an app?
Oh, it's taken years off our off our scale, growth scale, and what we've seen, it happened about 5 months ago, and we've seen a tremendous amount of usage already just on the FlyHouse app.
Are you pushing new users from JetASAP into FlyHouse? Like, how's that work? Are you still growing users on the JetASAP platform?
We're in the process of doing both.
Yeah.
Today nothing's changed. We're making some changes here before MEAA coming up, but the idea is to basically morph that into the FlyHouse side. One of the things on the FlyHouse is we don't book anything, as I said earlier, within 72 hours.
On the app. It has to be
app.
outside 72
Yeah,
hours.
it's got to be outside 72 hours. And so, and the idea behind that was we figured, hey, most people are booking 5 to 7 days out.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can get that solved today, then we eliminate the 72-hour chaos.
Yeah.
The JetASAP side on the empty legs, everybody wants an empty leg. So how do we solve that today? And we think, all right, hey, JetASAP could solve that inside of the 72 hours.
Within 72 hours is tough.
It is tough. But it's tough from several standpoints. It's like, hey, what do you need and what do you have?
Yeah.
We're all on these WhatsApp groups. One of them's got 1,000 users. The phone blows up all the time. I have this. I need this.
Yep.
Before all this existed, I remember I was in Outback with a bunch of sheets of paper and this big table, and I'm just literally calling operators with haves and needs and putting them all together. And so now it's neat to see where the technology is taking us.
The friend share program, I find that super interesting. I'm very interested in the jet sharing kind of platforms because I think people are doing them right now. You've got people that are flying together all the time. They're in WhatsApp groups. They live in the same locations. I see airplanes leaving at a similar time for the same destinations that I see, like big missed opportunities for that. How does the friend share work, and how has it been like? How have clients been using it?
So I mean, that's probably the number one piece of the app that has been well liked.
Really,
and from a couple of standpoints, but it's the friend share. If you and I went to we had 4 or 5 people go to dinner. I'm not Venmoing you at the end of dinner, and that dinner's $1,000. But if we go on a trip together, I obviously know you. I'm going to send you on the app. By the way, you book it in 3 minutes. You're going to get an email, and you're going to be able to pay for your side of the trip, your portion of the trip. That doesn't exist today.
Yeah.
Now, the misnomer is friend share. Well, I'm going to bring people that I don't know. Now, maybe that's down the road. But today, it's how do we solve for
a closed group?
Yep. Where you don't get to fit the bill, and then you're waiting on 7 checks and wires from buddies.
Yeah.
It's a $40,000 trip.
Or even I've done this as an operator where I booked a flight for an operator, and guy says, "Oh, I'm going to wire you. My buddy's going to wire the other half." Now you wire right away, but now I'm waiting on your buddy, and now the operator's sweating it out. I'm chasing you. I'm chasing him. Like that's like a shitty process for an airplane operator or a charter company that now they're kind of sweating that process out.
Yeah. And so that's put all the onus on the operator to figure all that out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, now I got to go 8 invoices. Now I got to get 8 wires, and you're the ringleader on this deal. Why can't you control it?
Yeah.
And so we've been able to solve that with the friend share. So the comments back on the friend share side has been overwhelming.
Really? People are really enjoying using it?
Yeah, because you think about why people fly private, right? We always talk about it's kind of 4 reasons, right? There's a life event, there's pets, usually pets involved. There's a business meal, and then there's a business deal type, and then there's the you only live once.
Yep. And
so all 4 of those factors could utilize the friend share aspect of it. We were actually talking to a country club the other day that wants to partner with us. They're like, hey, how do we get guys, members of our club to utilize the app? You got friend share.
Yeah.
And so being able to have that as an option and solving it inside of 3 minutes, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I think FlyHouse does a lot better than a lot of other people is your marketing strategy. Historically, marketing's only been for the large, venture-backed, Wheels Ups of the world or the NetJets or the Sentient. What's your take on marketing FlyHouse, and why have you taken the approach that you've taken?
Well, first of all, I love swag. I mean, I think it's playing a lot of golf tournaments, go to a lot of places, but I throw away a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that, when you wear that shirt, it's something that you're proud of.
Yeah.
In a previous life, I spent 16 years of building a brand, and I built that through culture, people wanting to put that on.
Yeah.
And so when you saw that logo, you're like, okay, I want to put that on. But you're putting it on something you're going to want to wear.
Yeah.
There's a cost to that. But the reward is people will wear it. And so that's always kind of been my thing with the swag aspect. But I think, doing direct marketing, being intentional. We always talk about being intentional about what you're doing. What are we trying to solve for? And if you can solve that, answer that question, then you can solve the marketing aspect.
So when you were looking at partners in that space, and you've got, Gretzky, and now you're going into golf, what are you looking for when you're looking at, hey, this would be a good FlyHouse ambassador or partner?
So right now, just organically, those have kind of popped up. It wasn't even on our radar. We didn't even think about the ambassadorship. I know we had talked offline about the influencer stuff and social media, but it kind of morphed into. Listen, Wayne's been a great client, and I've known he's flown with a bunch of people, but he's kind of always come back and said, "Hey, how can I help you all?"
Yeah.
And Justin Rose did the same thing, and so we said, "Okay, hey, how do we take this to another one?" We gave them ownership in FlyHouse.
Wow.
And I think that's, as we talk about being a separator. We always talk about being disruptive, but how do we separate ourselves? It's like we're giving our owners, of the aircraft on our fleet, we're giving them ownership in FlyHouse. Great. We're giving our partners, put your airplane on our platform, that airplane flies so many hours, we're giving you ownership in the FlyHouse. Somebody said the other day, well, hey, on the ambassadors, are you giving them a discount on their flights? We're like, well, we can't do that. They're owners of FlyHouse. So now I'm just, minimizing their share or bringing their share down because I'm giving them a deal. So you get believers, we call them apostles. And if you get more of those, they're going to be your best marketers.
So that's an interesting approach to give people ownership in the space. What's the end goal? Is it call it a venture capital exit, and then everyone's going to get paid? What's that look like? Where do you see, where are you hoping to bring FlyHouse with, where you're giving people ownership? Are people going to be hoping for an exit?
Well, I mean, listen, I think that's always the hope, and that's what we're doing. I mean, that's why we're doing this. Selfishly, I'm doing because I want to be part of something that's obviously much greater than me, changing the way we think about aviation. I've kind of grown up in it in the last 25 years being in it, and seeing the ebbs and flows of it and how things have changed. Being able to kind of put our mark on it and say, hey, FlyHouse now not only has transformed how you manage an airplane, it's transformed how you book an airplane. It literally is the whole ecosystem around aviation is FlyHouse. Mm-hmm. And so being able to kind of have your hand in each of those pots, I think is very exciting. For airplane operators and owners that want to get on the platform, how do they do that? Well, really, there's no cost. It literally is just saying, hey, do you want more asses in your seats? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, check that box. Great. We'll get you access to our portal. Again, no cost to you. And then obviously the iCal, they've seen the iCals and the APIs to the system. You continue to run your business. All we are is a sales function to be able to put asses in your seats. Yeah. That's it. How much do you want? How much charter, how much business do you want? And if we can get the operators, again, it's all a buy-in thing. You got to get the operators to understand, hey, I'm giving you ownership. I'm not here to take I'm actually spending the marketing dollars to put asses in your seats. Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But why would you do that, Jack? Okay, well, here's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because we're going to build this big ecosystem together.
Yeah.
And operators have failed over and over again, and not to their own fault. They just don't have the marketing spend to do it.
Yeah. They're focused on just operating airplanes, right?
They're just focusing on just getting to tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so, being able to solve this for them, bringing them a part of it, creates something the aviation's never seen.
What do they need to do? Like, what are the limits they need to get to be and get into ownership?
So you got to fly 360 hours. So whether you're a management
impossible.
company, whether you're a
total. So if you have 5 airplanes.
Well, no, it's per airplane.
Got it. Okay.
Per airplane. So 360 hours per airplane. Now we've got one owner from a managed standpoint says, hey, I only want 20 hours a month. Okay, well, it's $240 a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so in 2 years or a year and a half, you'll have ownership.
Wow. So it's not per year, it's just total.
Just total. Wow. So whenever you hit that 360, we got an airplane fly 800 hours this year.
Yeah.
Perfect, great. Yeah. He's going to get 2 dings on his ownership. For a FlyHouse partner, same thing. Fly 360 hours, perfect. You get ownership in FlyHouse.
Even as a client? Is that what you mean by a partner, FlyHouse partner?
Well, FlyHouse partners is our other operators that are on the platform.
Okay, got it. Yeah. For other operators.
So
it's either you're an operator of an airplane, you operate 5 airplanes, you bring those airplanes onto the FlyHouse certificate. Once one of those airplanes hit that 360, now you've got ownership stake within FlyHouse.
Yeah. So there's two things. You have FlyHouse Fleet, which is we have 9 airplanes today, 5 G5s, 2 4s, G200, and an 800. So once they hit 360 hours from the day it came on certificate, then they get ownership. Putting airplanes on our platform is our FlyHouse partners.
Yep.
So for every airplane, for example, Clay Lacey or Presidential, even my old company JetASAP, they've got 22 airplanes. They put 22 on our platform. Each airplane that flies 360 hours through the app, because it's all tracked technology, we give them ownership in FlyHouse.
That's incredible. And then it's not like it's revenue generating. So like at the end of the year, if you've made $100 million and they've got 1%, you're not handing them a check. It's theoretically, it's if that company is sold, that's the ownership stake, right?
Yeah. So we're giving them units. So for each type, so a light jet, mid, it goes up in type. So it's all based on type, not based on revenue.
Yeah.
But it's a little thing that has never been done before.
Never been done.
And if again, how do you bring people together? We've been on all these boards together and all these, charter committees and all that. It's like, well, what are we doing for the operator? How do we solve for this? We created FlyHouse Advisory Board, and that advisory board is specifically designed. How do we help each other, and how do we, figure out the COG situation? How do we fix the COG? One operator in California has different issues than the operator in Chicago, but they all have AOGs.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has an AOG problem. How do you solve that? Putting operators in the same room, our partners, and figuring it out together is a way to do that.
Outside of just being able to generate charter for all these other operators, once you get all these people on the platform, do you see any other ways that you're planning on kind of lifting up the industry and helping, especially these smaller operators? Yeah.
So a couple ways to do that. We always talk safety. So our kind of 3 ethos is safety, service, transparency. Safety is obviously is paramount. There are operators out there that are, what we call Argus Gold, that can never get to platinum because they don't have a safety officer. They don't have an SMS system. How do you solve for that?
Yeah.
Well, FlyHouse comes to the rescue. Through our advisory board, FlyHouse has a safety officer. That safety officer can then help that person elevate their game to get into the platinum world. We've actually seen operators that have actually come to us and said, hey, listen, what would it take to get our airplanes on your certificate and let us do what we do best, which is sail. A couple of the folks are, they fly as well.
Yep.
And it's so difficult to manage these businesses when you're doing 20 different things, and it's all cash intensive.
Yeah.
Cash flow, So, helping the little guy is just as important as helping the big guy. Putting them all together on the same platform solves that.
Yeah. And most of the planes in our ecosystem are the little guys, right?
And I don't. The statistic from Argus shows that about 40% of the aircraft right now, it might be 38, are light jets.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so when you talking about the app, we feel that the lights and mids are going to be the ones that are moving.
Yeah.
You know as well as I do, a guy flying a G5 is probably not going on an app.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk to Dan.
Yeah.
Great, no problem. We've got a private client group just for that.
Yep.
But I think solving, for these mom and pop operators,
the 6, the 10, the $15,000 flight,
right?
Guys want to be like click to book.
Yep.
One of the things you mentioned, which is your pillars, is transparency. How do you guys utilize that within your own aircraft management team?
So great question. So I think utilizing, the big step is you've got to have technology to be able to solve that. How do you solve it instantaneously with an owner? How does an owner, we were doing, when we first started, we were sending out these reports like every week, hey, updating the owner. Well, it's like, man, we're doing this manually. How do we do this where the owner is constantly involved? When he gets a trip, he gets an alert. If he wants, notification on his phone, hey, you just got a trip. Same thing through the app. When you book something on the app, the owner gets the alert on the app. It's almost like hey, I won today. So it's almost like that gamification.
Yeah.
But it keeps the owners engaged.
It's like that Venmo notification when someone sends you money, right?
Yeah, right, 100%.
And then how are you keeping that transparency with things on, like, because historically everything's marked up from an aircraft management standpoint, right? Because that's how most aircraft management companies make money, right? It's the small amount they make on an aircraft monthly management fee can't run a business. So you've got to make money on, you make a couple points on maintenance, on parts, on your benefits, on really everything, right? You're making a little bit everywhere. Does FlyHouse just kind of flat rate that? How does FlyHouse kind of handle that with regards to an aircraft management side?
Yeah, great. So great question. When we first started, we were just FlyHouse management, and that management style was different from jump. We take a larger percentage of charter. Yep. We don't mark up any third-party vendors. So the level of transparency is wide open. And to that point, we're giving you, as an owner, ownership in FlyHouse. Look at our books.
Yeah.
So, proof's in the pudding on that. I think having the technology, having it where it's forward-facing to the owner, real time.
Yeah.
But then, knowing that, hey, if that airplane doesn't fly for 2 months, you don't owe us any money.
Yeah. Do you think as that technology revenue grows, you can reduce those costs to the airplane owner? Because it's at some point you're probably going to be making more money on the technology standpoint that the small amount that you're getting from an aircraft monthly management fee won't really matter, right?
So we don't, obviously don't charge monthly management fees. Great. I think it becomes less and less about charter as we scale, because the number one thing we're always trying to solve for is how do we decrease the cost for an owner? And you decrease that by scale.
Yep.
Adding 2,000 airplanes to our platform, that's scale. And you think about all the ways that you spend money. We created FlyHouse Insurance, really for that reason. How do you drive the cost down? So taking FlyHouse Insurance, not only for the FlyHouse fleet, but for our partners. Man, if I can save them 15%, more than just their car insurance, So I think we can.
Those end up being big numbers, right?
Massive numbers.
Insurance,
you think about from a spend.
Yep. If you're taking, 10% off a fuel bill, right?
Right. So I think those are the next steps, looking at those, we always say, hey, where's the spend? It's obviously fuel, it's maintenance, collaborating with our partners on those items, and doing it on a scale that has never been seen before, 2,000 airplanes. I'll give you an example. So you talk about the FlyHouse Insurance. It's not just aviation. We're doing this on the employee side, benefits. We talked about it earlier offline about having the scale, for the guy that has 5 airplanes, he struggles.
Yeah. His insurance cost is a lot higher than.
It's a lot higher. Oh, by the way, your retention.
Yeah.
How do you keep that guy? And so, bringing you in, making you feel a part of the community, giving you ownership. I mean, I could see this, morphing into version 5. We talked about it as well of having the training program. Why is it that 5 different companies have 5 different Hawker training programs?
Same airplane.
It is wild to me.
Yeah.
So, I think looking at those things, looking at the spin, is what we're trying to solve for.
How do you get to 2,000 airplanes?
That's a great question. Do more of these podcasts with you. But I think it's, you got to get the word out. Again, it's changing the way people have thought for years. This is how we've always done it. Oh yeah, this is another company coming out of the woodwork. Who are these guys? And trying to figure. But we've built an incredible team. I think having the right people on your team, getting the right apostles, getting the word out there that hey, we're not going anywhere. This is what we're doing. And by the way, we're doing it together with you. We're giving you ownership. Those are things that just haven't been done before. You bring the right people on, build it, they'll come.
How can airplane owners or operators get in touch with FlyHouse if they want to get on the platform? Who do they got to talk to?
So James Jones runs our, we call him JJ internally. He runs our FlyHouse partners.
Okay.
That's for the app, right?
Yep.
Putting your airplanes on the app. From a FlyHouse fleet perspective, we're bringing on a president here in a couple weeks. It'll be launched, but obviously they can contact me. We've got several folks they can contact.
And then a guy that wants to just get on the app and charter an airplane.
Oh, just go to the Apple Store and download it.
FlyHouse right on the Apple Store.
FlyHouse right on the app.
Awesome, Jack. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Hi, it's Dan again. I want to thank you for listening or watching the Ironbird podcast. Really enjoyed our conversation with Jack at FlyHouse. If you want to get in touch with Jack, if you have an airplane that you'd like to get on his platform or would like to check out his app, I'll have all of his information in our show notes. And as always, if you want to get in touch with us at Ironbird, you can email us at fly@flyironbird.com. Thanks again.